Hello! Thank you for clicking on today's video. And I thought what I would do today is walk through the seeds that I'm going to use for my Goth garden. I am planning on doing a Goth garden somewhere out in the yard, not exactly sure where yet, and it may be kind of spaced out. But what I want to do is bring in some black flowers or things that have really dark foliage, a couple pops of color, more trending in maybe the blue and purple direction, and bright red, not as much yellow or pink. And I want to do a blend of both the flowers and foliage, but also some edible stuff. And part of that will be in the vegetable garden in the raised beds, but I think I'm gonna try and sprinkle some of those more edible plants throughout the flower garden or the beds as well. And so I'll start with the foliage, because there are only 3 of those. And what I'll do is I've got my seed packets, but I'll kind of pop up a picture. If I'm tech savvy enough, I'll pop up a picture on the side here of what the plant looks like, because not all of these seed packets have pictures on them. So starting off, coleus is going to be one of the types of foliage that I'll use. This one is a folia velvet, and I'll probably also look maybe for some grown plants that have some different foliage on them, different colors as well, but this one's like a very nice dark purple. And then similarly with that dark purple color, I'll do some dark purple opal basil. And this is one that I think I'm gonna sprinkle around with my tomatoes and with some of my garden beds, but then also just try to sprinkle in some of that edible landscape. And then on the moon gate, if you've seen some of my previous stuff, you'll see that metal arch moon gate. And I want to grow some vines on there, and it's going to be between this flower, which is the moon shadow hyacinth bean. It's a pole bean, so it kind of walks up around a trellis or a pole. Maybe this, I think maybe a little bit more so we'll be doing something like a moonflower vine, because there will be overlap in the Goth garden as well as with the moon garden, which is whites of everything. So there will be some fusion. I don't have a full vision for it yet, but it's working in the background. So then, kind of keeping in that edible direction, I'll talk about some of the edible plants, mostly vegetables that I'm thinking about. So I've got one tomato plant, and it's a black cherry tomato plant, so small and little black cherry tomatoes on there. And then 2 different carrot options. One is called a cosmic purple, and then the other one is called black nebula. So those are obviously they have green stalks, green foliage coming out from the ground, but when you pull them up, the root, the carrot is going to be a very dark color, but these are, I think these are going to be pretty fun. These will probably be in the garden bed, vegetable garden bed. And then I've got 2 pepper types. One is a black Hungarian pepper, and then one is a Murasaki purple. And they both seemed to have green foliage, but almost like the veins in it had a color, a purple color or a darker hint to it. And then the peppers themselves have a really dark purple color. I think the flowers do too. Those are ones that I think I'll be growing in their own pots for some of the plants, but then I'm also thinking this could be a fun one to just sprinkle into one of the flower beds. Yeah. And then the last vegetable that I've got is a bok choy, and it's called a purple lady bok choy. And the pictures online made it look incredibly dark. I'm a little suspect. I don't know if it'll actually be quite that dark. It was like almost black in the pictures. I feel like it'll end up being maybe more of a dark purple, but either way, a lot of cool, a lot of purples within these different vegetable options. And then last but not least, we've got the biggest category, and this is more of the flowers. So starting with 2 viola. One is a viola, the bowel's black, and then one is a pansy, black devil. And I don't really understand the difference between these types of flowers. I think they're both violas, but not all violas are pansies. Don't quote me on that, I'm still learning. but they have pretty similar looks, as we can kind of compare those two pictures, and with a little bit of a difference, it looks like maybe in the center. But they have really similar growing needs, similar light and water needs. So those will sprinkle in a little bit into the flower beds, and I'll probably do some pots with those as well. And then I have two sunflower types. So one is called a Chianti hybrid, and then one is a chocolate cherry. And so those both have some cool foliage on them from different shops. And those will also both be in the vegetable garden beds and then in the flower garden beds as well. I'm gonna put those up in the back of one of the flower gardens because they're tall, right? Our sunflowers are typically pretty tall. And then along with the sunflowers in the back, I'm going to plant some jet black hollyhocks from seeds that a friend gave me. And those ones typically, I don't believe, flower in their first year. And so since I'm starting them from seed, the first year is just gonna be some tall, green, stocky foliage and plants. And then the second year, they're supposed to flower. And they are biannuals, I believe. So they only live for maybe 2 years, but then they self-seed. I'm not totally sure. Again, beginner, so we're figuring this out as we go. But those are gonna be some fun ones. And then I also have, from that same friend, a couple seeds called Love in a Mist. And until I pulled up the photo for this, I had no idea what that looked like. And it's a mulberry rose version. All right, so more flowers. I've got one that's called Bachelor's Button, and this one is the Black Magic variety. I'll also do some Cosmos. This one is also called Black Magic, which I'm just now realizing, but lots of the dark colors, right? And these all do seem to have like green foliage and the dark purple flowers. So the more I'm looking at these flowers, the more I'm realizing that there's a lot of repetition, and I might want to add something that looks a little bit different. And this type of plant, actually, the dianthus, and this is a black adder dianthus. This is probably going to add more interest compared to some of these other flowers that look like they're going to be more of a long stalk and then a flower at the top. This one seems a little fluffier based on that picture. And then I've got some nasturtium, and I have what I would think of as like the regular nasturtiums, a little more in that orange-yellow color, and I've got that vine to go in the vegetable garden. But then the Goth garden version of the nasturtium is one called Black Velvet. And something I also have been learning is that a decent amount of these flowers are also edible. So while the vegetables and the herbs are more specifically the edible part of the edible landscape, some of these flowers are edible too. So the pansies, the violas, parts of the sunflower seed, the nasturtium, and then this next one. Now I'm starting to get a little out of that just dark purple foliage, dark purple flower color with the green foliage, and adding in a little bit more color variety with this one called Borage, and it's like a blue color. And the next one is Echinacea, or purple coneflower. And then from all of these seed orders, might have gone a little overboard this first year. One of the companies sent a free seed packet when you order a certain number of them. So this is a zinnia, which I see people talking about growing as flowers a lot, and I don't think I've even seen them grow before, besides in these pictures. So those are going to be a fun annual to just kind of see how they do, see what goes on there. So the funniest piece I thought of while I was doing research and watching these different videos and looking at these different lists of types of plants that might go into a Goth garden, because I think this trend has been around several years now. This is not a brand new thing. The more I was noticing the plants in the established garden bed, the border garden, that were already done when I moved in, have a decent amount of the larger shrubs or trees that are listed in a lot of these Goth garden lists. And so I'll walk through those as well. These are ones that are already planted. I have to cut back more than try to get them to grow. And they're gonna add a lot of that Goth element across the yard, which is why I'm not totally sure if the Goth garden is going to be more concentrated in an area, or if it's just going to be an underlying theme for the whole yard. We will find out. Okay, so I'll walk through these as I'm looking down at the list. One of them was the smoke tree or smoke bush, and the one that's planted here is a grace smoke tree. And then, we've got a picture of that here. And then another one, there's at least one snake root plant, and it's a specific one called the black negligee snake root. And then there's two others. I think the two others are more of a green color, so they're not that black negligee one, but they still have that a little darker of a foliage. And then in the tree direction, a black lace elderberry. Now this is one of those that was a super prolific grower, so it grew from like hip height to more than 10 feet tall. And I'll have to cut back some of that to try to get it to fluff out a little bit more. But I want to avoid hacking it all the way back, like all the haircuts that I have to give for the rest of the plants, because it blooms on old wood. So the stalks and stems and everything that are there now already have the buds that will give me flowers and blooms later in the summer, later in the season. So if I cut all of them down, I would still get a lot of foliage, but no flowers. And I want that happy middle. So I'll probably just shape it, but keep quite a few of the current branches. And then not so much a black flower or dark foliage, but I've got a Floribunda rose, and it's the Canyon Road variety with a brick red color. And so I feel like Goth garden, red roses, yeah, there's a through line there. And then there were the other three plants that I did not know exactly how to pronounce, but the Weigela. I think I said Weigela previously, so Weigela. I'm learning new things. The one that I have, or the three that I have, are a fine wine variety, and I don't think that you can get them anymore, but there's a different type of a wine something, Weigela, so similar ones are still available. And then the last one is the beautyberry bush, and I think it has a few other names that I can't recall right now, but it has mostly green leaves. It's more of a shrub type, and it's kind of unassuming as far as Goth garden goes until all of the leaves fall and it pops out as berries, because it has a bunch of these really shiny, almost like plastic looking purple berries. And there's still a bunch of them on the plant right now, and those were visible. Those showed up, I think, in the fall. So they're sticking around a while. So that gives a little bit of that winter interest for the Goth garden, because most of these things are going to be seasonal either in their growth, they're just an annual, or I'm only going to get those blooms through the warm months. And I also, as I was picking out all of these seeds and all of these flowers, I didn't think about the timing for when everything is going to either flower or produce fruit. So I'm realizing it's not going to be all at once, here are all of the plants that are black and purple and dark and blue, but instead it's more going to be sprinkled and doled out throughout the season, which is kind of cool. It'll extend that feel for it. So yeah, if you have any questions or if you have any advice, I'm doing a lot of seed starting for these. I know everybody's got opinions about gardening, but I would love to hear if y'all have any really sage advice for, I don't know, seed starting or plant placement beyond some of the basics, right? Does it get enough sun? Is it getting enough water? But yeah, I will follow along. I should say I will take y'all along and track just what the progress of this garden looks like, both from the seed starting perspective, as well as getting plants into the ground, and then what they look like throughout the rest of the year. I'm excited. All right, I hope that everybody else has a great day, and I will catch y'all in the next video.